Okay, so as I mentioned, so I'm Michelle Simard with Livable Buckhead, and we are gathering our engineers here today so that we can hear from Georgia Power about some programs that we think your buildings could hopefully take advantage of. The first one that we're going to talk about today is the Georgia Power, their EV Make Ready program. So this is a great program that hopefully a lot of folks can take advantage of. And this program provides funding for the installation of EV infrastructure at your buildings. So this is a great program, and we're going to be hearing from Todd. You're going to be presenting on this one?
Yeah, do you have the PowerPoint pulled up, if you don't mind?
I have it, yes. So
could you share your screen since you already have this up, if you don't mind?
Yes, I can. I just need to, there we go. I have it pulled up here. So this is the EV one.
There you go.
And there we go. Okay. Is everybody seeing that? Okay, perfect. All right, so take it away.
Thank you. Hey, good. I guess it's good afternoon now. It's right at just after 12 o'clock. I'm Todd Allums. I'm with the Electric Transportation Program here at Georgia Power. As one of our project coordinators for our EV Make Ready team. So we wanted to kind of just update you guys on some funding that we've recently been able to receive from the Public Service Commission and our new rate-based program here to help you guys, different commercial and industrial customers, install the necessary EV infrastructure to get the charging stations in several of the buildings here that may be interested in doing so around the Buckhead area. So I'm going to advance to the next slide. So basically we got on the left here is what we're going to focus on. We got $24 million from the Public Service Commission for some funding. 18 million of that is to be used for EV Make Ready infrastructure. And kind of what does that really mean, the Make Ready piece? It's going to allow Georgia Power to help commercial customers here in this area install everything that's necessary from the power source all the way out to potentially new meter, new panels, breakers, conduits, wires, circuitry to get it out to the location where the physical charging stations would go, either in a surface lot, parking deck, whatever. So all of that infrastructure and the construction work to do so that was normally going to be as the burden of the property owner to put that in can now be covered by Georgia Power through our Make Ready program. We have a list of several partner installers that are around the Georgia area, several of them here local to the Buckhead area where I also reside. So we have vetted all those guys. They will come on, install this on your property. They'll send me the bill, basically the scope of work and proposal. Once approved and everything's done, I pay them directly. The only requirement for the property owner is the physical charging station itself and the final connection / activation. So if you want to go on to the next screen.
And sorry to interrupt you, but what are those costs generally? I know it can range, the scope of work depends on the property, but just to get a vague picture of, what those costs usually run up to.
In a commercial, I keep looking out to my left because I said I was in Buckhead looking at this large parking deck across the street. Mm-hmm. So commercial office building, it really does depend on where the power source is going, where the charging stations are going. If it's multiple levels of a deck, obviously conduit and wires priced out by the foot. So it really can vary. Some of the ones I've done recently where we've installed, let's say 10 chargers in a deck and ran out infrastructure for up to 20. That last one I did, it was probably around the $75,000 to $80,000 range just for the infrastructure for that job. But I've had several others that were over $100,000.
Okay.
Down the road here at the condos, they have capacity for 40 amp circuits. So we're putting 15, 15, and 15 on their 3 levels of their parking deck and running the spider web conduits out seamlessly through the levels of the parking deck. That's like a $148,000 job that they normally wouldn't have been able to do because they didn't have that kind of CapEx sitting around. So now we're able to offset that, relieve that burden, put in the infrastructure. Now all the residents have to do is buy their charger and connect to the local junction box that we put in. But for this application, commercial businesses, it really can range from anywhere about 50,000 to upwards to 200,000. Just depends on how many charging stations.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted for folks to get a picture of what those costs can usually run up to that's being covered here. So thank you for that.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. I'm not going to touch on this slide because it's just, the point is of this slide is that electric vehicles are here. You guys see them every single day. Every manufacturer has committed to boosting up their manufacturing process, committed to building batteries, acquiring batteries. The price of the automobiles of manufacturing these EVs is coming down due to the battery pricing and technology being more readily available, and the price of batteries coming down. So you've seen that GM's made a big push. You've seen the Ford Lightning and Mach-E, Mustang commercials that are around there, Volvo, Mercedes, everybody in 2025 is going to have a commitment to have a plug-in on most every vehicle that's going to be out there. So what this slide is that by 2025 to 2030, I call it the hockey stick approach. You know, level out, we're just over 2% adoption right now and around the state of Georgia, but we're looking to get that 7 to 10% in that 25 to 30 range, 2020, 2030 range, and then it drastically goes up from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so advance to the next one. So what is this infrastructure for? It can be used for various different charging stations and multiple different technologies. The Public Service Commission wanted us to spread this around. You know, it's not just for the affluent areas, but it is definitely for commercial office buildings and workplaces where people work. We all know everybody can plug in a 110 or 240 volt outlet at your home, but we want to be able to put in this infrastructure where people work and play, shop, dine, whatever, so they can really extend the electric mile range that they're driving. So, you know, it can be for a 208 volt. Most commercial buildings that you guys are managing there from an engineering standpoint are 120, 208. Some have 480 power. If you're wanting to put in a DC fast charger, that's fine. We can put in that infrastructure. Or if you want to put in a bank of a bunch of level 2 stations, the 208 volt type chargers, we can do that as well. Does not matter what brand of station you put in. It doesn't matter if they're amenity, non-network kind of plug and play stations, or if you want them to be networked so that people have to have access control and pay to use the stations. All of that really doesn't matter. They all either run off, you know, pretty much run off the same power. You can advance through.
Yep.
These are, as you click through that, the point of all these, you can just keep clicking because it's going to fill
I'm
the
trying.
whole thing.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize it was changing. How far should I go? I apologize.
Oh, no, keep clicking all the way to the next slide. I'll just touch on this as she's clicking. As I said, it's for different market segments. We're focusing on commercial segments here, so that's why I'm not going to spend a lot of time. But we are helping forklift distribution centers install a charging infrastructure for electric forklifts, ground service equipment at airports, overhead gantry cranes, even at the Port Authority. So go ahead. So again, to touch on what is the make-ready infrastructure, it is finding that local power source, be it an outside exterior pad mount transformer. If that has capacity in it, and maybe we look inside your switchgear, could we tap in? Do we have some blanks in an existing switchgear spare breakers? We could set a new breaker in there, run off of that breaker to some 12208 sub panels, or if we need to set a step down transformer, if it's a 480 volt panel, that's perfectly fine too. And then set a whole new panel for the charging stations, put in the necessary breakers, not just size for what you need today, but this is a scalable future proofing program. So we want to put in, I use the example of 10, let's say 10 chargers now, we'd want to build out for 20 plus for future expansion. Now, I can't build out for what's going to be necessary for 2050. I can't quite plan that far out, but you know, for the next foreseeable future, 10, 12, 15 years, we want to definitely help get the infrastructure in now the first time while we have the funding and while we're in there doing the work. So again, from power source all the way to the parking space and all the construction work, whether it's trenching, boring, cutting of asphalt, anything like that, we're going to leave the property better than, or at least as is, before we did any of the construction work to do that. So
just for clarification, the chargers wouldn't have to be put in place then. You're just getting it ready to do that. Yeah.
We're getting it EV ready with the infrastructure. The customer's requirement is to provide their own charging station and pay for that final connection. And if they want, since they own the parking space, if they choose to paint or stencil or stripe the parking space with the EV logo, that's on them as well. But that's really it. There is a funding source I will mention, since you just brought that up. If the customers do not have the capital to put in charging stations, they really want to take advantage of this Make Ready program while it's here, which it does expire currently at the end of next year, 2022, or until the $18 million has been used. And we have not come close to using anywhere near half of that yet. So we're good. There is a funding source that Georgia Power has through our Spark Fund program, where you essentially can finance the stations for the charging stations. In my example of 10, let's say they wanted to put in 5 dual plug stations that are networked, that are, they can be like $6,500 each. Well, 6,500 times 5, that's $35,000 that they may not want to be spending on the charging stations. We actually could help finance that piece through Spark Fund, put it as a line item on their utility bill, spread it out for a 5-year term, and they pay out of operating expense as a line item on their bill versus forking up the upfront capital. So if owners want, we can definitely help with the charging financing as well.
All right, I'll just drop Spark Fund in the chat in a moment, just so folks can have that. Should I advance?
Yeah, please. Okay, so on the left in the green box, this is an application online based program. We made it super easy for everybody to fill out the application. Every person has to go through the same steps. So we have a website. It's georgiapower.com/EV Make Ready. And I'll share the link for everybody to go to. So you go to our website and there's a big red button at the top, apply for funding. If your property is interested, get them to go apply for the application. So it's just, there's no financial information needed. It's just information about the property, not just address and account number, but how's the facility serve? How many charging stations do you have now? How many are you looking to add? Is this for on-road passenger vehicle type charging or off-road like forklift or ground service equipment? Obviously you're going to select on-road. How's the building serve? Is it 480 208 power? Blah, blah, blah. You answer that, hit submit. It'll come to my team for review. We'll review it, do some back office stuff, kind of give you a pre-approval. And the next step would be to set up an actual on-site meeting for me and one of my partner installers to come out, hopefully meet with you guys, show me around the property so that I can visually look and see that what I saw in my engineering tool is what actually exists out in real world, and then take some measurements and figure out the scope of work to get this infrastructure in place. My installer, as I mentioned, will give me that proposal. Be happy to share the scope with you guys and the site plan, so everybody's on the same page of where we wanted to put this and here's what it's going to take to get it out there. And if somebody'd like to see, like the ownership wants to see, well, what's Georgia Power investing in this? It's public knowledge. So I don't usually include it in the agreement, but I can show them that, hey, Georgia Power is willing to spend $75,000 to put in the infrastructure for 8 chargers now, plus room for future expansion, as an example. So once that's done, we'll put that, as I mentioned, into a customer agreement, kind of a T's and C's type looking contract as exhibits. We'll share that with you guys for ownership to review and sign off on. Once they sign, it'll come back to us for execution. We'll send them the executed version of the contract. And then I issue the PO to the installer that's going to be needing to order the equipment and do the work. Get with my construction manager, with you guys on site, to give you updated timelines and keep you updated through the whole process of when we're starting and when we expect to complete. And that's really it. We are going to put in some sub-meters and some CTs on new panels that we're going to be putting in. And that's really just to track utilization and data on customer market segments, whether it's at a hotel around here or at a commercial office building or a parking deck. We want to collect the data and see how the utilization is, potential load shapes, and maybe grid impacts. Because we're trying to help go to the Public Service Commission to see if we could create potentially an EV charging rate for commercial customers to be able to utilize, like our Power and Light PL commercial rate right now, or RTP rate. It'll never be as good as RTP, but it would be better than your standard, say 12 or 13 cents a kilowatt hour Power and Light rate. That's kind of what we're using this data for, so we got to collect that, but that's included in the program as well. All the little stuff on the right, I won't read. I'll touch on some high points. It's just the T's and C's of the contract. Georgia Power is assuming most all of the risk here. We are going to front the money and pay for all this. Thus, we need people to actually keep this infrastructure on their property for a period, we say, of 10 years. It's really kind of like our transformers. It's really for eternity, but the contract's for 10 years, and then it automatically renews 1 year at a time thereafter until we're all dead and gone. So if someone does want us to come rip the infrastructure out, let's say a property gets sold, they're like, I do not want this anymore, to come take it out, there would be a penalty for the ownership would be responsible for paying for us to have somebody go out and remove it, as well as potentially a penalty for the depreciated life of the asset over, let's say the term is 10 years and you want it out in 6 years. Well, you're going to pay us to come have it removed. Plus there's a penalty for that 4 years left remaining on this contract, right? So that's really the main points of the T's and C's. All the other stuff is standard language that Georgia Power is taking care of. The one last thing is that we will have to get an easement, because Georgia Power is going to own and maintain this infrastructure on your property, even though it's behind the meter and potentially in a parking garage. We're going to be responsible for making sure that power and the breakers are working and everything. A lot of it's underground, so there's really not a lot that can go wrong, but we'll be responsible for this life of this contract to maintaining this infrastructure all the way up to the spot, to the J box, where we're going to cap off and stop. It does not include us maintaining the charging stations. Again, ownership, that's their responsibility, and they can select whatever charger they want. They can purchase a warranty or maintenance plan with that charging station manufacturer. That's on them to be responsible for. So that's kind of the line of delineation of where we stop and where the customer starts. I think there may be one more I'd like to touch on.
And the customer can choose their own contractor as long as they're approved by you guys. Is that correct?
Well, kind of. We have a list of about 20 approved contractors that's been through our RFI process through supply chain. They have master service agreements with Georgia Power, so they've gone through all the rigmarole and red tape. And we've been using some of these guys since back in 2014. We do not mind if you have an electrician that's on site that knows your building well, that you just prefer to use and you don't want to use one of our guys. That's fine. They just have to go through the same process everybody else has already had to go through. Since they're going to be acting as a kind of an extension of Georgia Power, physically putting this infrastructure in, we got to make sure they have a master service agreement with us, like, again, everybody else had to go through, and knowing that they'd be held responsible by us for anything that would ever possibly go wrong. I know not a lot's going to go wrong, but still we'd have to hold them accountable. So they have to get insurance requirements and all that. There's some paperwork with supply chain. So we've done it at 2 other places around the Atlanta area here with folks that wanted to use their own electricians, and that's perfectly fine. We'll get them connected to supply chain, but doesn't mean you can't apply. If you want it all handled by Georgia Power, we got you covered there too. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should I advance, or we still, sorry if I could.
Yeah, you can go ahead and advance. I'm almost done here. I want to.
Okay.
Here. So this really on the left is what I've basically covered. It's just in words that permitting, the site design plan, engineer drawings, all the construction work. It's not just the equipment. All that's covered under the Make Ready program. I'm free. I'm a regulated employee with Georgia Power, so my site evaluation and assessment to come out to look at everything with my partner installer there's no expense for that. It's included. So putting all this together, the scope of work, the physical detailed scope of work, the actual site design and layout from the aerial shot view will be incorporated, so everybody's on the same page before we sign any agreement and move forward with issuing all the paperwork. On the right is just, again, what I've already stated: charging stations, making that final connection, the activation, and then you can see some examples of some logoed or painted parking spaces with signage. If the customer, the ownership wants to put that in, that would be incorporated in a different proposal to them. It is good to note that usually my installers that are doing the infrastructure work for me on your property, they also can kind of make it turnkey for the ownership. They can give that charging station proposal and the any miscellaneous parking treatments that they want to do, and that activation, they can give that proposal to the ownership. So they really got to go to one person, me, and my guys they're going to give me the proposal for them. We'll pay them directly out of our funding for the infrastructure, give the customer the proposal for the charging stations and connections. So make that a little simpler so people don't have to go to multiple different places.
And Todd, what's the, is there a typical turnaround from the time of application to when you would come out and do the site evaluation?
Yeah, we're getting bombarded with applications right now. There's only 3 of us. So I know I have at least 80 projects that are in my backlog now that we're working through. But when I get the application, you'll get an automatic notification that we've received it and I'm reviewing it. And it takes me 10 minutes to review the application. So once I get a notification, I usually go right ahead in there and advance it that I've at least received it to the next step to set up a site assessment. So give me about 7 to 10 days to review it and schedule that site assessment. Once the site assessment's done, I wait on my installer to give me the proposed scope of work and the site plan. That usually takes about, let's call it another week. And then implement that into the agreement and get that approved by the ownership. And if they have the budget and they're ready to buy the chargers, their only requirement, again, the charging stations, they have to have purchased the charging station within 30 days of us completing the make-ready infrastructure work. So if they're committed and they're ready to go with the chargers, then we can get this implemented in the contract and get everything signed off and schedule the construction work. And depending on the invasiveness and intensity and scope of the work and where, if it's in a surface lot or, boring is required or asphalt cutting and the weather and all that, obviously everybody knows there's logistical issues with lead times right now due to some COVID constraints that are still lingering around with panels and charging stations even. So right now they're taking anywhere from application to starting construction. I'd say on average, it's taken about 30 to 60 days.
All right, thank you so much. Should I advance?
Yeah. Go ahead and advance one more slide.
Okay.
I think we're pretty much done here. You guys get the gist of it now, probably. So, I'm sure you've had people, if some of you may already have charging stations in your buildings. If you don't, I'm sure some folks may have inquired about it. And even if you have charging station, that's fine. We can add on the additional infrastructure to support a growing quantity to add on additional chargers there. Or if you have none, you can use this program to get some in. There are kind of some minimum thresholds because we really are saying that you need to install at least a minimum of 6 plugs, which would be 3 dual stations or 6 individual chargers, and be willing to potentially expand for future proofing. That's the whole purpose of this program that the commission wanted, is to, why not do it now when we're already in there, right? You guys know just as well as I do, cutting the asphalt and concrete and trenching and boring one time is a way less expensive and easier to do, and just lay some extra conduits and we can go ahead and run the circuits out usually to junction boxes and truly have it stubbed up ready for EV future proofing. All you got to do is plug and play with the chargers when you're ready to add on as demand grows.
Mm-hmm.
Meeting your sustainability goals, contributing to all of that, and helping to attract and retain employees that drive EV charging stations or EV chargers and need a station to plug in at work to really extend their electric miles driven. A lot of the cars are well over 250 miles of range now, so that's usually more than enough. I know I charge up every time I go to our office, which is usually, these days, not very often. Back in the day when Mickey and I worked together, we plug in every day, but most people don't have to really plug in every single day. I mean, we got a Tesla Model 3 and it's got a 300-mile range on it, 315. I plug in probably once a week, technically, unless I'm driving all over the state. So, but it's a wonderful program. We're very, very thankful and happy that the Public Service Commission gave us this funding, and we've been able to really make a huge impact in a lot of different commercial customers' locations to help get this infrastructure and condos, multifamily, commercial. That's kind of where those are the segments I live in, and we've been really successful so far over the last since January when we really rolled this program out.
Yeah, that's great. And the point you make about anyways, the point that you made about future proofing is a really important one. I know we already have an ordinance in place that requires commercial multifamily to be EV ready And that might only increase in the future. So, and then also you were talking about time it takes to do the construction work, the boring and everything. And this seems like a great time since we have less folks still, you know, in our offices, and it'd be less intrusive now while we still have lower capacity at our or lower attendance at our buildings.
Yeah, no doubt, no
Yeah.
doubt. You know, I appreciate that's pretty much it. Does anyone have any questions, details needed or anything? If you could help me monitor the chat there.
Yeah.
Happy to answer any questions if you have them right now.
Yeah, so Kelvin's asking, will these stations have to be open to the public? For example, we have paid parking. So Kelvin's with Transwestern. And yeah, so they're a commercial office building, and curious if it has to be open to the public.
No, it doesn't have to be open to the public. It can be behind the fence for, you know, resident use only. It could be behind the fence for employee use only. It could be a hybrid approach of both employee / public use. You could do some public stations, let's say down on the lower level. And if employees park on level 3 through 5, then you could put a couple up there for them. As long as there's actually a charging station connected to my infrastructure and someone has the ability to plug in and use it, we're good.
Great, great. Thank you for that. Curious if anyone else has any other questions. I know a lot of our buildings that are represented here, a number of folks do have EV stations in place already. I'm curious, what chargers do you guys have in place? And if you're looking to expand, would it be for a different type? For example, I don't know if you guys have level 2s or if there's different kind, and any plans on increasing and changing that at all?
The ones I've put in for these guys while they're maybe throwing in some chats here, I mean, a lot of them have network charge point type stations that are access controlled and payment method options and everything, so they're not giving the electricity away technically. Helped several people put in those type stations around the Buckhead area since 2015. I know like the Monarch building around, they have some charge point stations, but other people, there's a few people that have some Clipper Creek non-network type stations. And I know some people have some Tesla stations, and several hotels have the amenity charging stations, and they provide that as amenity to attract those type of drivers to come stay at their hotel, and they let valet kind of handle plugging in the cars and moving them around for folks. So it's really just however the ownership is wanting to utilize it, if it's free or if they want to have someone pay for it. I've not put any fast chargers in, besides assisting Tesla putting in those fast chargers at the mall. I haven't put any fast chargers in the Buckhead area just yet. But they're out there and they're definitely available. Anyway, 50 kW all the way up to 250 kW right now.
We've got a quiet group today. Does anyone else want to? I'm just curious for our own, just to kind of get a sense of what we've got going on at our buildings that are represented here. If anyone wants to chime in and let us know what you guys currently have in place at your buildings and whether there's discussions to expand, we'd love to hear about that. Am I going to have to call on folks?
There's someone.
This is Kelvin again with Cushman and Wakefield. FYI, this is one of the guys I work with. This is their computer, so he's better looking than me. We've got a multiple here, and I was the one asking about the parking having to be open to the public. But I just started here, so I was really curious to see this. And we've got a couple other properties, one of them being towards like the 4th Ward area. And we've got some charging stations there as well that's paid parking, but we've had some of the tenants ask if they were going to be putting superchargers, fast chargers in the area. So I just thought I would ask if you know about anything around that area.
Old 4th Ward, yeah. I mean, I also mentioned I work with not just commercial office type workplaces, but I also do mixed use developments, multifamily and condos, which everybody wants to be able to have a place to plug in at your home. So that's been taking off like crazy with this program for obvious reasons. And we don't necessarily put in fast chargers at residential type communities, but at commercial places, I'm helping a lot of different buildings that are smaller retail centers that don't have a parking space for, 6 or 8 level 2 type chargers, but they may want to put in a dedicated parking space or 2 for a fast charger, and where 2 cars could plug in at one time on a 100 kW fast charger. And if one car is plugged in, they get the full 100 kW of output, or if 2 cars plug in, they split the load. So they're each getting 50, but that charges your car in minutes versus hours. So retail shopping is for fast charging stations. Happy to, and it can be covered under this infrastructure program. There's no minimum number of fast chargers for level 2 like there are for level 2s. We wouldn't make you put in 3 or 4 fast chargers because they're a lot more expensive. But you would have to put in at least 1 fast charger or 6 level 2 stations. It's kind of the threshold that we're operating under now.
This might be total left field, but I had another random question. Are y'all putting in anything like the chargers and like subdivisions, like HOA kind of stuff?
Yeah. In Brookhaven, I did that at a townhome subdivision. They had a community area near the pool or common area, whatever they called it, and they wanted to put in a handful of level 2 stations there just for people to put in. But we also, I think they were trying to put in like some 240 volt outlets in a lot of the parking garages there. But it's definitely not out of left field, and we can use this program for that as well.
That's cool.
Todd, we had another question. Does this load add to the building's load, or will it be its own?
It can be either. If you're a large building and you're RTP customer with Georgia Power, obviously you would probably want to try to tie it behind that existing meter and try to build out of existing infrastructure if at all possible, so that it could be accounted for with your RTP account, your real-time pricing account, which is somewhere in the 3 to 4 cents a kilowatt hour versus, standard commercial rate of roughly 12 cents a kilowatt hour. Or a lot of times we will set a new meter and we will set a new panel, potentially set a new transformer if we have to do a larger scale install, or set a new, if there's not 480 power and you want to put a fast charger in, then we probably, if there's 3-phase around there, we'd just set a new 480 volt 3-phase pad mount transformer and put a new meter on it and a new 480 volt panel and the breakers to support that charging stations. And sometimes we can get it totalized if it's RTP. If you're already under a PLC, power and light commercial rate, it would just be another account on your bill, and that way you would know exactly what the power is being consumed for the charging stations that are tied to that meter. Does that answer the question? Kind of.
Eric, does that answer your question?
Definitely not the metering specialist. I'm just telling you from what I've done here over the last few years, different projects.
Yeah, I guess I'll speak rather than try to chat here. The only thing I would say is that I certainly wouldn't want RTP prices when it's not on the good side of things,
Yeah.
And so, as I kind of look at it, if you had a separate meter that is totally a different utility service, you can then really understand what the pricing is that you're going to charge for that charger versus flex RTP going up and down and that kind of stuff.
That's absolutely right. And that's a very good point. And I actually prefer to have it all, if you're doing a larger scale approach with the charging station installs, I prefer to have it tied to its own meter because I have to get an easement. And it's a lot cleaner when I'm building all my new infrastructure to get an easement on stuff I'm going to have to own and maintain in your building or in your parking deck or wherever, versus hodgepodging of coming. And I do it every single day. We definitely come out of existing equipment, but to put it in perspective, another question I get that's along these lines is, how much am I paying for the electricity used per hour of charge when someone plugs in? On a standard PL commercial type rate, it's about 12 cents a kilowatt hour. If you put in a level 2 station and and your voltage is 122.08, each station requires a 40 amp dedicated breaker. So when I plug in, it's actually pulling 80% of that, right? So 32 amps is what it's drawing. So 32 amps times 208, the voltage is about 6.6 kW per hour of charge. if you're paying us about 12 cents a kilowatt hour, that equates to approximately 80 cents per hour of charge. So if it's pennies, it's not like it's a lot of money, but if you had 10 people plugged in all at the same time, 3 times a day, 7 days a week, obviously you see a little bit of an uptick in price, but I just mentioned most people don't plug in every day. Most people, it's kind of staggered. And so I'm sure Georgia Power, I'm sure you guys work really hard and pay Georgia Power a whole lot of money on your power bill for large buildings, and putting in a few EV charging stations is not going to make a dent in that bill, but that's kind of how the math works out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Thanks,
welcome.
Eric, for your question. Does anyone else have any questions here before we move on to hear from Mickey? If something comes up, please go ahead.
Oh, just recap, website, application on the website. If you're interested, please go there, fill out an app for our team to start reviewing, and we'll be in contact with you. We can set this up, but I sure appreciate everyone's time today.
And the website with the link to apply and more information is in the email that I sent to you guys inviting you to this meeting. So you can find it there. And yeah, thank you so much, Todd. We appreciate it. So Mickey, I'm gonna, do you want me to pull up the slideshow for you, or were you gonna do it yourself?
I think I'll try.
Oh, that's fine. I'll just stop
We'll see.
sharing.
I think I have a lot of slides, and I kind of don't plan on really spending a lot of time on all of them, so I'll probably be zipping through them
Yeah.
real quick. So let me see. Let's give this a whirl.
Yeah. So Mickey's going to be talking to us about Georgia Power's energy efficiency programs for commercial buildings.
Cool. Let's see here.
So I stopped my share. Let me know if you're able to share your screen.
Okay. Let me know when you can see, if you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Cool. Success.
Perfect.
Well, first of all, Michelle, thank you, and thanks to Livable Buckhead for allowing us to kind of present our program today. I think I used to be a key account manager and used to call on property management companies, so I'm pretty sure some of the folks on this call may be aware of our programs already. And however, I know that Georgia Power has transitioned from having a personal key account manager to allow the property managers to more of an automated type of website type of deal. So y'all may not know about these, and I apologize if we transitioned. We just cut way back on the key account manager. So anyway, so today I'm just going to kind of zip through some of our energy efficiency programs. It's kind of a good day, and the fact that you had Todd talking about free money, really, right? And your investment was very low in order to be able to get that. And I have some rebates as well, but it would take a little bit more as far as investing into some energy efficiency measures to get those rebates. However, there are some long-term benefits of lower power bills and helping the environment and so on and so forth. So with that being said, let me just get going here. And if Michelle, if you could kind of help me with the chat, because I'm just looking at a full screen here.
Of course.
All right, cool.
Yeah, folks. So if anything comes up, please pop it in the chat and I will monitor that and step in when needed.
Cool. And so I kind of always start because everybody, like, if you're like me and somebody says free or something, you're like, there's always a catch. So I always kind of explain a little bit why we have our energy efficiency programs and how they fit in with Georgia Power. First of all, every 3 years we create what we call an integrated resource plan, and it's actually a generation plan that we submit with the Public Service Commission, and the EE programs are part of this plan. So they're the demand side management part of this plan, where Georgia Power does not have to build generation. We actually don't have to invest that capital if we are running a demand side management program. So it's really part of our generation plan, a big part of our generation plan. We are going to try to be carbon neutral, believe it or not, by 2050. That's the goal of the Southern Company. So a demand side management program is going to be a big part of that. But anyway, so it is part of that plan, just so y'all know. Annually, we have a $12.7 million rebate budget. So this year, that's what we have. We'll have the same as next year, as Todd alluded to. We're getting ready to go through a rate case, and so things may change after 2022. we don't know what that future will hold for both of us, Todd and I. This only for, which you guys are, commercial customers only. So if you were sharing around, that's not for industrial customers. They opted out of the program. I'm going to talk about two programs today. I'm going to talk about our prescriptive program, which is really real simple to understand. It's kind of a rebate per unit. We'll talk about, for example, some lighting. If you were to replace your fluorescent lighting fixture with an LED lamp or lighting fixture, then we're going to pay you X dollars per fixture or X dollars per package unit. So kind of easy to understand. We also, but not everything fits so neatly in that prescriptive program. So we also have a custom program that is wide open. It's for energy management systems, chillers, all kinds of different things where we actually calculate the kWh savings based on the measure that you're deploying, and we're going to pay you 10 cents per kWh. So that one takes, and we'll talk about resources to help you for that program, but it takes a little bit more work for those programs. Our prescriptive program to talk about, we have a rebates per unit like we talked about, and we have first of all, Michelle, you did send out the overall package, right?
I have not. I will do that as a follow-up to this. That was my plan. I was going to send kind of a recap, and I was going to include that PDF that you sent me with that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you'll be getting a PDF of all the measures
Yep.
here. I'm going to dig deep in there, but if y'all have some specific questions, I certainly love to answer those. But we have rebates for lighting is probably our largest category. I would say probably somewhere around 70% of our rebates go to lighting, and it's still out there. There's still a lot of fluorescent lighting that can be changed to LED, and it's still a big market. We have food service and grocery, not to go into that, but we have, for ice makers, efficient ice makers that y'all may have, or walk-in refrigerators in your place, we have that. Water heaters, pumps, anytime you're going to put a variable speed drive in, we have a rebate for it for the most part. So, contact us for that. And then business equipment, we do have some for like some computer equipment, some smart computers, or I call them smart. They're gonna shut down when they've been inactive and different things like that. But anyway, so just here's some of the different types of lighting I know you guys are familiar with, but one that you may not know is we also do outdoor exterior pole mounted lighting. And even though these wall packs, you see those and they're outside, I think we kind of consider that interior. But if it's on a pole and it's for security outside, then we give rebates for those as well. One thing you got to make sure though, when we purchase the lights that they are DLC certified or Energy Star. This has been a part of our program, and I've been trying to change it a little bit to expand, but these are lights that are kind of certified as being energy efficient, and we also they're going to be a little bit higher quality light as well. So when I was talking about the prescriptive program there and lighting and the different measures, most of that is for retrofits. So it would apply to y'all right in your existing buildings. Just so you know, we do have a lighting rebate for new buildings out of the ground, but it has to be better than code. Obviously, if it's code, there's no incentive there for just meeting code. So if you're 20% better than code, then we're going to give you 4 cents per kilowatt hour. And I'll talk about with Mark Stewart here later about some resources we have to help you calculate that. But it does apply to new buildings as well. Something that probably may not apply to y'all, but just to throw it out there, and we could always circle back at some point in time, discuss this. For non-chiller, right, units, non-PTAC units, or mini split systems, we do have a super duper AC tune-up where it's only good for a unit for like one for every 5 years. So it's going to be more than just cleaning your coils and doing things. This is going to like be tuning up your race car to run at optimum levels. Well, that's the old gas one, right? The electric one's going to do that anyway. But anyway, so it is something where we train the actual technicians or companies to do that. So it's not like, unless we trained you guys and you were doing your own, we could probably do that, but it would be kind of getting a outside vendor that's already signed up and understands the program and has the proper equipment to do that. But that's out there. So then that's kind of, prescriptive. Like I said, you're going to get a list of all the measures under prescriptive, and you can go through to see if you've made any upgrades or if you plan on making any upgrades. And the reason, make sure that if you're planning on making any upgrades, that we kind of get that project in so we can kind of go ahead and give you what your estimated rebate would be. So if you're trying to enhance your return on investment or your payback period to get it passed through, make sure you reach out to us so that we can kind of go ahead and give you a rebate, and you put that in there as part of the overall savings or cost or whatever you want to do. So now I talked about prescriptive. We'll talk a little bit about custom. And remember, prescriptive is if you put something in, you get X dollars. It's a per unit deal. When we start talking about custom, then we're going to probably take a few more resources to figure this out, because we have to actually calculate your kilowatt hours savings. And not every building is the same. It doesn't operate the same. So it's going to be different types of savings, but we do have resources with Clear Result that will help you do this, and we'll share that later. The biggest one that may apply, and I'm not sure if y'all have those, I think I saw Cushman, Wakefield and Cousins in your buildings or not, but the chiller upgrades. If you're looking at potentially, you're at the end of the life cycle of that chiller and you're going to invest the money in a new chiller system, certainly get with us beforehand, because what we're seeing is that our rebate could potentially help cover the difference between a code chiller that you would have to put in and a high efficient chiller. So there's some significant dollars that we'll talk about that can go to those. Energy management systems, I'm sure most of y'all already have those. But if you're changing energy management systems, and make sure you get with us to see if we could possibly give you a rebate for that. High efficiency motors is not on the prescriptive list. So as you're upgrading your motor of motors to high efficiency motors, then we would take a look at those and see potentially whether it's elevator or whatever it may be. Economizers, what we do, and we'll talk about some of this later, is we actually give you the rebate based on your changing your outside air strategy. So by not bringing in as much outside air, whether you're using a MPBI, which we'll talk about, a technology to maybe help against the virus, UV lighting, or O2 sensors or economizers, or whatever it may be, that you're going to reduce the work on your HVAC system, then we have to calculate what that would be, and we're going to pay you for that. And then also we have network lighting control. As you remember, lighting was in the prescriptive program. However, if you're going to engage with network lighting controls as well, that's in the custom program. And so what we may do is just move your whole project into the custom program itself, including the lighting, and just bundle it up together, or we may keep it separate. And I know I'm zipping through here and racing through here, y'all. So if anything pops in mind, stop me, and I'll take a break here and pull over the side of the road. But
yeah, don't forget to drop questions. Just speak up if I think we have a small enough group here, or drop questions in the chat and we'll bring them up later.
Cool.
Go ahead, Mickey. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no problem. So these are just some ranges. I know a lot of this doesn't apply to y'all, but certainly outside air reduction strategies would, and chiller replacements would, and potentially EMS upgrades would, energy management system upgrades, would. So those are ranges for some rebates. Just give you some ranges of what we traditionally see. VRF is variable refrigerant flow installations, and if it's greater than 65,000 or equal to or greater than 65,000 BTUs, then we're bringing those into the custom program. I'll mention this later, but anything before that goes to our midstream HVAC program. And it's not for the customer, it's for the distributor. And I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. So most of your rooftop units and things of that nature are not covered in the prescriptive or custom programs. Chillers are, though. One thing that's down here is the maximum rebate on the custom program is $75,000 per building per year. And that, or 50% of the total project cost, whichever is less than. So that's that. And also on the prescriptive program, it's $25,000 per building. But I have a slide that'll show that as well. Not to go too deep into this. This is just talking about a chiller replacement. You know, just what we're going to do is we're going to look like at the baseline efficiency. If your chiller is not at its end of life, which I think it's ASHRAE 60.1 kind of determines, is I think it's somewhere between 20 and 30 years. Then we're going to look at the efficiency of that chiller, you know, when you bought it, right? And then we're going to look at the efficiency of the chiller you're replacing it with, and then we're going to calculate the net difference in kilowatt hours savings on a kWh per ton basis and how many hours you run, and then we're going to pay you 10 cents a kilowatt hour on that. You guys probably won't, I would imagine, have a chiller plant scenario where we have that maximum 250,000, but it's going to take 4 more buildings tied into a chiller plant. A lot of hospitals and different facilities have that, but 4 more buildings would have to be tied into that system for that to qualify. We talk about this little note down here, pre-approval. Last cycle, when I say last cycle, before this, we're in a current cycle, you know, we required pre-approval for all projects, at least to let us know what you were doing. On the prescriptive program, we don't require pre-approval. Since COVID, we know everybody's kind of focused on other things and disoriented a little bit, like even ourselves are. So we waive pre-approval in our prescriptive programs, but obviously when we look at custom and understanding that there's a calculated kilowatt hour savings and there's a lot more resources that have to go into it, and analyzing the project itself, that we have to have pre-approval on all custom programs. So just make sure if you're thinking of something that you get with Georgia Power up front and clear result up front, and we'll go from there. This is just talking about the codes here that are out there, and what we're on the chillers. I talked about the definitions of let's see, we don't have well, new chiller obviously is above code. Replacements will fall in if it's not at its life expectancy end. This is just I just had this in here because I know this is a hot topic. I'm not sure if y'all are putting this into your commercial buildings, but you know, with COVID out there, a lot of school systems are putting in oh gosh, I got to remember what MPBI stands for here. Bipolar ionization, and I can't remember what the first part is, but it's kind of a hot technology. Georgia Power is not paying for the technology itself, and some folks are confused out there. They're saying, well, I'm installing MPBI, do I get a rebate? Well, no, we give you the rebate if you adjust your outside air intake, which the schools were doing before COVID. Some of the facilities during COVID are saying, well, I want to put this in, but I don't want to reduce my outside air either. Well, we don't have a rebate for those scenarios, but if you're doing the technology and reducing your outside air, then we have a rebate we can calculate for you. Here's the caps that I was kind of referencing before for both programs. You know, prescriptive rebates are 25 per building. New construction is the same. Outdoor pole lighting, LED, installing outdoor pole lighting. Now that is on its own, and it's $10,000. So one thing that we can do here is if you have a prescriptive part of a prescriptive program in a building, and you have an outdoor lighting project in the same building, and you come up with a chiller replacement in the same building, we add the 75 and the 10 and the 25 all together. So that cap, it's a cap per program, right, for that building. So your cap would be, what is that, 85, 105,000 or so, or 110, or whatever it is there for that building. I just wanted to mention this, and really I had this slide more for Michelle and Livable Buckhead, and y'all may have some smaller commercial buildings as well, but probably our most impactful program, when I say that, you see the second line in the small commercial direct install programs, we pay up to 70% of the cost. This is a lighting upgrade program. This is for our smaller commercial customers. So the peak demand has to be 120 kW and below. So I'm guessing, you know, just rule of thumb, if your building's probably 20,000 square foot or less, then it's probably going to be under that 120 kW, and it could even be larger potentially. So we would look at that where Georgia Power comes in and does the audit. We don't do necessarily have it as part of our program, even though Mark may talk about it later where we do audits, but in this program, we come in and we do the audit. We give you the estimate on your savings. We get the cost estimate as well. We have the contractors. We come out and do the work, and you just pay 30% of the cost of installation. So it's a turnkey program. That program, similar to the EV program, has a lot of activity. So we would want to jump on that to make sure we get you in the pipeline on that program as well. The other two programs really don't apply to y'all at all, except I did mention the midstream program itself, where we're actually paying the distributors for HVAC equipment and cooking. So your rooftop units and things of that nature aren't going to qualify for rebates because we have that internal into a midstream program for distributors at this point in time. That'll change next year in 2023. So with that, I think I've probably blasted through all that. Before I introduce Mark, is there any questions on all that I threw at you?
If anyone has any questions, please let us know. You can drop it in the chat. We are running a bit short on time. I'm sorry for not monitoring that a little bit better.
And I do have a heart. So so Mark, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I'm going to introduce you, and we'll go a little bit longer, and then I'll have to go. But just so y'all know, Mark Stewart's on the call. Mark's with a company called Clear Result. Clear Result is our implementer for our energy efficiency programs. They're a national company. They understand our brand, understand how we treat our customers, but they're our feet on the ground. There are boots on the ground. So as you do have a project or a potential project, then we're going to be engaging Mark, and Mark's going to help you with everything from what's required, from a documentation standpoint, to helping you put your application in, to making sure that once the lead comes in, he works with you all the way through the project to completion. So Mark, I'm going to let you talk real quick, and I think you got a few minutes.
Okay, well, I appreciate, first of all, Livable Buckhead inviting us to this meeting and having the privilege and honor to be here today. So we are Clear Result. We're the largest provider of energy efficiency and demand response solutions in North America. So this is one of the reasons why Georgia Power hired us, because we're good at what we do. So to get to the point of this, and the hot topic of today is the EV chargers. If you really want to pay for those EV charging stations, improve your energy efficiency of your building, you can help pay for those EV charging stations to be put in. We really want to work with you. Go ahead to the next page. Like I said, Clear Result is here to provide energy efficiency programs for our customers. And right now, Georgia Power is our customer. We have a team of in-house engineers to help and provide technical assistance to you. Like I said, we're really here to help. Go ahead to the next page, Mickey. So this is on Georgia Power's website. This will, when I get into this a little more, this Trade Ally website allows you to see all of our trade allies and what their specialties are. So we have approximately 391 trade allies that do our installations and do a really good job installing lighting, HVAC controls, lighting controls, all of the measures that Mickey mentioned earlier. So this is my information right here. One other thing I wanted to mention, energy efficiency is the only investment that you can make right now that is getting a return, whether you're in an up economy or a down economy. So it pays to go ahead and do your energy efficiency upgrades. Call me if there's anything that you're looking at or thinking about looking at, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, and we'll get something done for you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so sorry we ran a bit over. I want to respect everybody's time here. if there are any questions that anyone wants to ask right now, I'm sure Mickey and Todd would be happy to stay for a few minutes. I understand if anyone needs to hop off though, but if we want to bring up any questions now, we're happy to do that. Or you can also email me separately and I can get your question along to them and connect you that way if something pops in your head later in the day or whatnot. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys sharing this information with us here today. I hope this was helpful to our Buckhead engineer group. Hopefully this can spark some ideas of some programs that you can take advantage of for your buildings.